History deserves to be remembered, and today we're going to tell you about the most absurd international crisis you've never heard of. A story where a single dead pig nearly triggered a war between the United States and the British Empire. A conflict that lasted 12 years, involved military standoffs, diplomatic brinkmanship, and international arbitration. And yet, somehow, the only casualty was one pig. This is the story of the Pig War of 1859, the strangest border dispute in history, and proof that sometimes the fate of nations can hang on the most ridiculous of threads. Let's set the scene. It's 1846. The United States and Great Britain have just signed the Oregon Treaty, ending years of tension over the Pacific Northwest. The treaty establishes the border between American and British territory at the 49th parallel, a nice clean line running east to west. Except for one problem. The treaty says the border runs along the 49th parallel to the middle of the channel, which separates the continent from Vancouver's island. Sounds simple, right? But there are two channels, the Haro Strait on the west side of the San Juan Islands and the Rosario Strait on the east side. If you use the Haro Strait, the islands belong to the United States. If you use the Rosario Strait, they belong to Britain. Both sides claim the islands, but nobody wants another war. The ink on the Oregon Treaty is barely dry, so both governments agreed to just ignore the problem. Joint occupation, they call it. British and American settlers can both live on the islands until diplomats figure it out. Fast forward to June 15, 1859, San Juan Island. A small American farmer named Lyman Cutler is tending to his potato patch when he notices something infuriating. A large black pig is rooting through his garden, eating his potatoes. This isn't the first time. This pig belongs to Charles Griffin, an Irish employee of the Hudson's Bay Company, the British corporation that essentially governs British interests in the region. The pig has been wandering onto Cutler's property for weeks, and Cutler has complained multiple times. But today, Cutler has had enough. He grabs his rifle and shoots the pig dead. Now, here's where things get complicated. Cutler is an American citizen living on what he believes is American soil. Griffin works for a British company and considers himself under British authority. When Cutler offers to pay $10 for the pig, Griffin demands $100, an outrageous sum, roughly equivalent to $3,500 today. Cutler refuses. Griffin reports the incident to British authorities, and the British authorities? They decide to arrest Cutler and try him under British law. The Americans on the island are outraged. They petition the U.S. military for protection. This is where things spiral out of control. The American military commander in the region is Brigadier General William S. Harney. Harney is not a diplomat. He's a hard-charging, aggressive officer who sees this as British overreach on American territory. He sends Captain George Pickett, yes, the same George Pickett who would later lead Pickett's charge at Gettysburg to San Juan Island with 64 soldiers and orders to prevent British authorities from interfering with American citizens. Pickett lands on the island on July 27, 1859, and immediately begins building fortifications. The British are stunned. What the hell are American troops doing on British soil? The British governor of Vancouver Island, James Douglas, is equally aggressive. He dispatches 3 Royal Navy warships to San Juan Island to force the Americans out. By early August, 5 British warships carrying over 2,000 men and 167 guns are anchored in the waters around the island. Captain Pickett and his 64 soldiers are staring down the barrels of the most powerful navy in the world. And all because of a dead pig. But here's where cooler heads barely prevail. Rear Admiral Robert L. Baines, the British naval commander, receives orders from Governor Douglas: land Marines and remove the Americans by force if necessary. Baines refuses. He looks at the situation and realizes how insane it is. He sends a message to Douglas that has become famous in military history: I will not involve two great nations in a war over a squabble about a pig. On the American side, General Winfield Scott, the most senior officer in the U.S. Army and a genuine war hero, arrives in October to assess the situation. He takes one look at what's happening and is furious with Harney for creating an international incident over a pig. Scott and Baines, two professional military men who have both seen real war, meet and negotiate a temporary solution. Both sides will maintain a small military presence on the island, but neither will take aggressive action. It's a joint military occupation and armed stalemate until diplomats can sort things out. The standoff becomes official. American soldiers camp on one end of San Juan Island, British Royal Marines camp on the other, and for the next 12 years they just sit there. Here's the remarkable part. For 12 years, American and British soldiers share an island, and nothing happens. There are no battles, no shots fired, no incidents. In fact, the opposite happens. The soldiers get along famously. They visit each other's camps. They play sports together, cricket and baseball. They celebrate holidays together. American soldiers attend British parties, and British Marines show up for American Independence Day celebrations. One British officer later wrote, "The Yankee soldiers are capital fellows, and we get on very well together. The officers share meals and drinks. When supplies run low on one side, the other shares. It's one of the friendliest military occupations in history. But politically, it's a stalemate. Neither side will back down. The border dispute remains unresolved, and both governments are too proud to simply give up the islands. Finally, in 1871, the United States and Britain agreed to submit the dispute to international arbitration. They choose Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany as the arbitrator, a neutral third party with no stake in the outcome. Wilhelm appoints a commission of experts to study maps, treaties, geographical surveys, and historical documents. They spend over a year analyzing every detail. On October 24, 1872, Kaiser Wilhelm announces his decision. The border will follow the Haro Strait. The San Juan Islands belong to the United States. The British accept the decision gracefully. On November 25, 1872, the Royal Marines lower the Union Jack and depart San Juan Island. The British soldiers shake hands with their American counterparts, wish them well, and sail away. The pig war is over. Final casualties, one pig. So what do we make of this bizarre chapter in history? On one level, it's absurd. Two of the most powerful nations on earth nearly went to war over a pig eating potatoes. Thousands of soldiers mobilized, warships deployed, all because of livestock trespassing. But on another level, it's a story about restraint, about military leaders like Admiral Baines and General Scott who recognized madness when they saw it and refused to let pride and politics drag their countries into a pointless war. It's also a story about how small disputes can spiral out of control if nobody's willing to compromise. Lyman Cutler and Charles Griffin couldn't agree on the price of a pig. Their local authorities couldn't back down without losing face, and suddenly, two nations were on the brink of war. Today, if you visit San Juan Island, you can see the remnants of both the American and British military camps. They're preserved as historical parks, There are monuments, old buildings, and interpretive signs explaining what happened. And there's a memorial to the pig, because in the end, that pig might be the most important casualty in diplomatic history. A reminder that sometimes the smallest spark can ignite the biggest fire, and that wisdom lies in refusing to fan the flames. The Pig War, 12 years, 2 great empires, hundreds of soldiers, 5 warships, diplomatic negotiations, international arbitration, and a border dispute that shaped the Pacific Northwest, and one very unlucky pig. History is full of wars fought over territory, resources, and ideology. But this one was different. Because in the end, everybody realized how ridiculous it was and chose peace instead. History deserves to be remembered. Even the absurd parts, this story is entirely factual. The Pig War really happened, and all events, names, and quotes are historically documented. The San Juan Islands dispute was finally resolved in 1872, and today both the American camp and English camp are preserved as national historical parks.